Welcome back. So the next thing I want to do is tidy up this scene a little bit. So I have a couple of duplicate objects that have somehow snuck into the scene. I'm just going to select those and duplicate those, or delete those I should say. We have just the one object in the scene now. And we'll call this barrel I. So now what I want to do is work on the rings around the barrel. That's kind of the next tricky part of this modelling process. So I have some reference up here, and you can see on some of these images what we want to achieve. So it's basically these rings around. They're pretty thin. They have this kind of curved end usually. Sometimes they have an angle at the end, and sometimes they're pretty flat. And then we have like two little studs. In this case they're kind of flat studs, and sometimes they're actually more rounded. There's a lot of different examples of these, but you can see the way they're kind of hammered together. They almost look like one solid object for the most part, and especially when the rust starts taking hold, they kind of do become almost one solid object. We do want to have a little bit of separation in them though. Now, I like the way this one has additional rings around it to kind of hold it together. These ones here have two at the top, two at the bottom. These are much newer, so you can see the kind of studs in there actually look more like nuts and bolts than studs or screws or nails or something like that. This one is a really nice one as well. So something like this could be pretty cool to try and achieve. Now the way to do these rings is we could go through and create 6 different rings of slightly different shapes. But that's going to take quite a while, so what I'm going to do is create one ring with a nice overlap on it and a couple of nice studs, and I'm going to make it a lot bigger than the barrel, and then I'm going to duplicate it and then just conform it to the barrel using a modifier called shrink wrap. So this is a really cool modifier, and just to show you the basic idea that we're going to have is cylinder. It's going to be scaled down. Go to edit mode. We'll delete this face, we'll delete this face, select it all and scale it in the Z axis, take it down to the size we need, and obviously our version is going to be a lot higher poly, and in order to conform this to the model we would just add a shrink wrap modifier and then select the barrel, and immediately it just shrinks down to the shape of the barrel. That's basically what we're going to do. So let's go back and let's model this up so that it's actually a nice bit of modeling with these overlaps that we have in our reference images. So I think I'll do something very similar to this, like the kind of end of a belt with a little bit of a curve to it. And these studs, I think I'll just keep those either little half circles or little cylinders, something very simple. So let's look at this. So the way to do this overlap, I think really the best way to do this overlap is to basically just grab one of these edges, grab this edge here, and we will edge split this. So let's use Control E. I think I've actually just accidentally did that there. Grab this again, Control E, edge split. Make sure we only have one of these selected, so we have one selected, and we're going to extrude this, take it across here, grab this other edge, really want to make sure we get the right one, grab this other edge, extrude this across here. So in the top view we basically just want to get these edges and try and line them up a little bit, so make sure we have the ones on this side. Take them to about here. Grab these ones. Take them to about here. Move them up. This gives us a bit of a separation between these two faces, but when we add thickness to this, that's going to fill up. So now we want to get the curved area at the end of this. So I'm going to add in control loop. I'm going to add in 2 control loops, in fact. I'm going to scale them a little bit. Z axis, just bring these up. I'm going to add in 1 control loop here, about there. Go back to solid mode so we can see what we're doing a little bit clearer. grab this vert and this vert, basically move them back and then scale them down a little bit, and that gives us this curved edge. This in a little bit as well. So this should give us that nice little curve on the end. Now the one thing to check from this was we want to keep this pretty uniform, pretty flat. Okay, so we've got the basic shape. We need to add thickness to this now. So again, we're just going to use that favourite, that solidify modifier, to add thickness to the object. It seems to be working fine. We're going to have to tweak this in a minute because we're going to add subdivision surface to it. Thickness actually seems okay. We can always tweak this a little bit. We want to add a subdivision surface modifier. If we add it now, we're going to get some issues where things get too thin at the side because we don't have any control loops. Let's delete that subdivision surface modifier, add a bevel modifier first, 2 segments, and then increase the profile up to about 90 to give us some nice control edges with very little actual bevel. We'll tweak the size of this slightly, maybe to about here, and then we'll add our subdivision surface modifier. Now you can see the subdivision surface modifier hasn't smoothed out these edges. That's because the bevel is set to none for limit. We want to set it to angle. You can see immediately everything gets a lot smoother. The angle itself, let's take to probably about 80. And that should catch everything except these ones here and these edges. Subdivision surface, let's add an extra subdivision in there. And let's hit smooth shading back in edit mode. And that pretty much gives us our ring. So it's actually a little bit too smooth around here. I want this end to be a little bit closer to this, where it hits this point and then starts curving. So back to edit mode. And easily to do this, we just grab this and give it a bevel. And there we go, there's our smooth edge. And that looks pretty good. The next thing we have to do is add those little studs. Now you can see the way this overlap is working here. It's not really lining up perfectly. Let's fix that first before we do anything else. I'm going to go into wireframe mode. So here, now, in thinking about this, the way this overlaps is this would overlap along here and then it would get to this point, and instead of leaving a gap, it would kind of curve round a wee bit. So let's actually try and achieve that effect. There we go, so that's actually not too bad. In the next video we'll add the studs and then we'll conform it onto the model itself.